In this demo, we are going to take a look at the work mode graphs on the dashboard. So in the work mode graphs, we are beginning to step beyond just the pure data output from the activity analysis and actually starting to analyze and work with the data by setting up different preset filters and ways of cutting and beginning to work with this data. So in the work mode, we have divided work mode into four different categories. The first being individual, so that is when somebody is working by themselves and performing a more focused heads down type of activity, such as computer work, reading, writing. And then we have collaboration, which is when two or more people are observed conducting a face-to-face meeting. And then virtual, which is when someone is interacting with technology, basically to have a meeting, so either a phone call, working with a polycom in a meeting room, or sitting with a laptop, performing an online conference call, any of the different ways that technology might be allowing for virtual collaboration. And then lastly, social. So when two or more people are observed either eating or taking a pause or a break together, which we're actually not seeing showing up here for this project. Now what I'm going to do here is, since we know that in this organization or for this project we had quite a high occupancy, is I'm going to go ahead and just filter out when no activities were being observed, since I'm more interested in understanding what was happening when there was activity. So as we can see, when work was occurring within this space, the predominant work mode was individual work at 60%. And then the remaining 40% was nearly evenly split here between collaborative work, which was with face-to-face, versus, again, perhaps collaborative work, but what was happening virtually at 16%. And then a little bit of other. And this is something that's going to vary a little bit project to project based upon how the observations of the activities line up with the preset filters. Now, I can also continue to filter this data, and let's go ahead and get an idea here of the different business units. So this is something that I might do in order to prepare for going into individual meetings with these different business units, to begin to get an idea not only of how the overall organization was working, but to understand how these different business units were utilizing their space. And this might begin to suggest different ways that space is being used by these different business units, and different solutions, different ratios of workspaces to meeting spaces, or the technological needs of these different groups. And so here I might first just look at corporate services, domestic, which has predominantly individual work mode, versus the digital photo studio, which is 100% collaborative. HR Center of Excellence, again a very high individual, but still a fair amount of virtual and face-to-face collaborative work. So here we can quickly scan and get an idea of how perhaps these business units don't differ too much from each other, with the exception of the digital photo studio. And yet we can begin to get an idea of perhaps that there are some different ways of working behind these different groups.